Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Remote Real Estate Investor. I'm Michael Albom, and today with me I have Billy Keels back on for another episode. For anyone who missed it, Billy is an entrepreneur, business owner, former tech sales guy, and he's going to be sharing with us today about how he started his business, why he started his business, and really the mindset shift around going from employee to entrepreneur. So let's get into it. Billy Keels, welcome back for round two, man. How are you? It's so good to see you.
Michael, what's up, man? I am super excited to be back. This is nice.
I'm super excited to have you here. So for those listeners that did not catch our first episode together, give us the quick and dirty, who you are, where you come from, and what is it you're doing in real estate.
Very cool. But you know what I have to do first, man, because you're very kind to welcome me back. And I just want to say, everybody, by the way, if you haven't already, leave Michael a nice, wonderful, honest written review as well as rating. It helps to bring guests to you, which is phenomenal. No, I mean, seriously. I mean,
Thank you.
The energy you all bring, the organization you bring, the structure, and also I know that a lot of the things that you are doing are making positive impact because you're helping to educate people and also inspiring them to take action. So it's the least I could do also as a fellow podcaster to go out there and ask of that. So, but yeah, Billy Keels, I'm still the same guy from the Midwest of Ohio, who has spent the last 26 years of his life in corporate up until recently. No longer in the corporate world. I've also been spending the last 21 years living in Europe. I know, Michael, that's close to your heart as well.
Very much so.
Specifically between France, Italy, and most recently Spain. I am someone who really, really had a great corporate experience. I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic. Some personal things happened in life that helped give me some clarity that it was time to do some other things. And now I am very, very fortunate to be living, I'm living my best life, and I was able to make my 9-to-5 optional and doing that in a point in time where I'm still in my 40s and living between the US and Europe. And that was part of my life goal. So very, very fortunate and super excited to be back here and share another conversation with you, man.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. Billy, before we jump into it, I'm just curious, do you remember the best compliment you've ever received? Just out of curiosity.
The best compliment, so you've kind of putting me on the spot, man. I don't know. I think that's when you have to ask my parents. I don't know, because there's, I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember. But usually it's probably something that's not related to me, but something that I would have learned from my parents, more than likely. But I don't remember specifically. Why do you ask?
I love it. I'm just curious, man. I'm curious to know if people remember, like human psychology, if people remember the compliments more, or do they remember the insults more?
I spent 26 years of my life, 21 of the 26 years in sales and sales leadership roles. So the bad stuff I've learned to just kind of let it go. The good stuff I try to remember. But if it, like part of the process that's happened with me is I try not to internalize too much of the stuff, because then I kind of keep that. And there's a tendency to say, well, I've heard this so many times, therefore I am. I always try to work on being the best version of myself. So even if I get a compliment, it's kind of like, cool, I appreciate that. I probably learned that from my mom, from my dad. It's something I've seen from my brothers, or something that my wife is helping me to be better in.
I love that, man. I love that. Can we turn back the clock a little bit, Billy, and talk about your corporate career? Because I think that you have a similar story to a lot of folks, especially listening, have an amazing corporate job, are killing it in whatever it is they're doing. And they can see themselves doing that maybe forever. You had kind of a life change. I'm just curious, like, why did you decide to go into business for yourself?
So, you know what, Michael, this is actually super, such a wonderful question. And I can tell you, I think the last time I told you that there was something that happened to me when it didn't actually happen to me. It happened for me. When my son turned 3, I missed his birthday. Right. And because I chose to go to a business meeting that was in Germany, because I was chasing the corporate dream. I was, that was the thing that I was supposed to do. I was a really young father. And that day I felt an incongruency in my being, right? Because I woke my wife and son up to, wake them up, and our 1-year-old to give a hug to our 3-year-old and kiss. And then I was out the door. So that was the thing that made me realize, like, hey, look, I've got to kind of take action. I really like my corporate career, but I got lost somewhere along the way and my priorities got out of whack. And so that helped me to start taking action, stop reading a lot of books, because I'd been reading books for probably 3 or 4 years, right? I knew all the numbers, all the theory, all the stuff, but I didn't take any action. And I'm very, very proud to say that I've just celebrated a decade later, right? A decade later, I was able to accomplish the goal, which was being able to make my 9 to 5 optional. And even though I went in probably for the last 3 years and I didn't actually financially need to, I chose to go because the life balance that I had was much better than it had been the previous years. I was still enjoying the things that I was doing in my role. I was really well recognized. I was, making way more money than I thought I ever should be making. And a decade later, like I literally just came back from Ohio, where I was over visiting some friends, got to go to a sporting event, which was fantastic, saw family members, and then was able to be back here for my son's 13th birthday. So a decade later, I recognized that the action that I took for a decade while I was working my day job, having this side hustle, like it's paid off. And it hasn't been perfect, Michael, not even close to perfect. But the fact of the matter is I got out of my own head. I started taking action. I started seeing results, and then I started multiplying on that action. And even though I left the corporate because something also non-financial, I think we talked about this last time, happened with my dad, and it helped me to realize like, okay, I really like what I'm doing, but there's some other things that I can do. Now, in less than a year later, and my son's, 10 years later, his 13th birthday, I'm at a point where I'm like, wow, all these things that I dreamt and wrote about on my dream board, they actually came to fruition. Not perfectly, like I said, but, being able to be in this point now is, I'm glad that I started taking action, and I'm glad that I started that side hustle. And I know that I worked a lot of crazy hours during some of that time, but it wasn't all for nothing.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Well, first off, congratulations. That is super, super exciting to hear. And I'm sure your family is super thankful as well. Let's talk about, I think so many folks get it in their head that they can't have a side hustle, or they can't go build a business of their own, either because they don't feel creative enough, they don't feel inspired enough, they don't feel called to do something, or they just feel like they don't have enough time. So talk to us about the mindset around, I'm working my 9 to 5, scraping by, or doing really well, not even scraping by, just doing really well, but I'm exhausted at the end of the day. How does someone like that even think about doing something else?
Yeah. So, and I guess I kind of put it in, there's a couple different things inside of me. I kind of always knew that I wanted to do something else as well. Because I think one of the best things about working in a corporate role is, and specifically, like I was in the IT sector, right? And not only in IT, I was in software. So this is like super cutting edge, massive profits. And so it was a great place to be every single day. And so there are so many, I realized for a while, I just wanted to continue to work and be an employee, and things were great. And I was really, really fortunate because I had great salary. I was given opportunities to learn, to grow, leadership opportunities, great training. And so for that period of my life, I didn't really want to do anything. It was like, this was the most amazing thing ever.
Yeah.
But then also, as I started getting into the other phases of my life, I realized hey, listen, there are other things that are really important to me. I want to be able to be here or be there or just be nowhere when I want to do it and not have to worry about somebody else telling me when. And so when those things started happening for me, once again, I started realizing okay, well, number one, the things that, because I didn't grow up with money at all, but I got into a point where I actually was not just saving money, but investing money. But then I realized that it was outside of my control, like the stock market, couldn't control that. But that was the only thing that I'd been taught to do, which was buy low, sell high. Not really a winning strategy. And I didn't take enough time to get educated on that. That happened in 2000 when the dot-com bubble happened. And the same thing happened again in 2008. I lost 33% of my portfolio. So I knew that even though I was in a really great corporate opportunity and great corporate experience, inside of me, I needed something else. I wanted something else. I just didn't know what it was. And so it wasn't until I came across that little purple book that so many people have read that started turning the idea on in my mind. But even with that, Michael, like I said, it took me 3.5, 4 years to go from theory to practice. And it took me missing my son's third birthday to actually start to take that action. And so once I started, being able to take that action, I realized hey, listen, as long as I continue to give the outputs, because I was in sales and sales leadership, Like, what are the outcomes that are expected in my role? I always performed at a high level. Like, I was in the top talent program. I was going to Hawaii every other couple of years for, overachievement against quotas and stuff like that. So I felt like it was always important to be able to give everything that I gave during my corporate time, because that was also providing me the income to be able to do the investments in the other stuff, which is actually creating my runway for my own life, like the one that I was building for my family. So it was finding that balance between being a really good, sometimes great corporate employee. I think even I don't think for a while on my LinkedIn, it said, "Hey, happy corporate employee." Like, that was my moniker. So that was like the thing. And people were like, "You really a happy corporate employee?" I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's treated me really, really well.
Yeah.
But it was something more that was inside of me that said, "Hey, listen, it's time to do something else." And I was afraid for a really long time, because I was a high paid executive who was visible, and people were like, "You can't be doing anything else, man. You need to be client facing all the time. You make a lot of money. You're doing this, you're doing that." But I knew that it was something that I really wanted to do. And there was sacrifice that also went on, right? Because you're in that type of role, you're expected to be on almost 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. So I was waking up really, really early in the morning, and I was staying up really, really late at night. And fortunately, both my wife and my kids understood that once I got back on track. And it was about being able to find that balance. So I know it's maybe a little bit of a kind of a long-winded answer, but I think it was about recognizing how fortunate I was in the corporate role that I was in, and I did like it. I liked it a lot. And at the same time, at a certain point, I knew that I wanted something more. I knew that I wanted to have the control. Initially, it was of the financial outcomes of my life. And what I realized I really wanted to have more control over my time. And it manifested itself just a couple of days ago, which was a decade later, which was me being able to fly to my hometown, stay there for a week, hang out, and then be back for my son's 13th birthday. So so that's hopefully that answers your question.
Freaking amazing, man. So let's talk about like the next obvious question, because you were an executive in IT tech sales. So what did you end up doing? Like, what kind of business did you start?
Yeah. So the thing that I started to understand was, it was a thing that came across. It was really, this is kind of dumb luck. It happened. It just really happened. Then I read that Little Purple Book. The proof of concept was really simple. It was like, okay, well, I was working in this intangible world, selling software. You can't touch it. You pay multi-millions for it. And then there was, hey, you pay a couple $100,000, then a couple million, and you get this actual physical, tangible thing that you can touch. People want to sleep in it, so they'll pay you for it. So that's the revenue line. By the way, you got to make sure that this place stays in order. So you've got some operating expenses. You got to pay your insurance, taxes, maintenance and operations, maintenance, repairs, things like that. Then afterwards, you get to this line, which is net operating income. Well, cool. And if you have some debt service or mortgage, you pay that mortgage, and everything else you get to keep. I was like, tangible, simple business model, and there's a need for it. So I went and started investing in real estate. And I think we talked about it last time, but here, based in Barcelona, Spain, but investing always back in the United States, exclusively in the US. So I started with the smaller multifamily, and then I bought a mobile home park, and then I opened my mind to thinking about new things. And I was like, okay, cool. Once I understood that I could get the education, start to build a network around people, and then start to continue to take action on this imperfect information, I started seeing my asset base grow. And those assets, the smaller multifamily, the mobile home park, the ATM machines. And then I started investing with other people, because that made a lot of sense for me, because I was a high paid executive. So I started realizing, like, this is really, really cool, but it's taken a lot of time. I need to do something where I can actually leverage the efforts and expertise of other people. And I was someone who was an accredited investor. I figured that out later. And so then I started investing my capital with other people in things like the ATM machines and things like, larger multifamily buildings and some development projects in the hospitality space. And then I kept having this one specific problem, which was I was investing in all of these, and I don't want to get too technical, but passive streams of income, like IRS definition of passive income. And I kept still paying 40+% in income tax. And I was like, this doesn't work. So then I started realizing that I needed to start asking different questions. I got into a specific area within the energy space, and that energy space helped me do a couple things, which was continue to build my asset base that was generating income. This time it was active income, but it was also helping me out as a high paid executive. It was really helping me on my income tax, because there were some specific tax code rules related to energy production that helped me not just generate income moving forward, but it also helped me keep more of my income through income taxes and income tax deductions. So it was looking at all of these different things. And then at a certain point when I left my corporate career, I thought I really like this building the asset base. I like continuing to do it. And I'd build a lot of relationships. And the one thing that really made the biggest impact on me as a high paid executive was the thing that was helping on the generating active income and keeping more of my active income. So today I really focus my company in that area through syndicating capital with accredited investors for those people that are very similar to the way that I was when I was in my corporate role. And that's how my businesses continue to evolve today. So hopefully that answers the question as well.
I love it. I love it. And Billy, can you give us, I mean, because you're in the energy sector, and if anyone's been paying attention to the news or the world or living not under a rock, the energy sector has gone a little bit haywire over the last couple months, years. So can you walk us through like what has your business gone through over the last couple of years with COVID and the war in Ukraine and this sort of thing?
Yeah, man. So this is really, really interesting, right? And one of the things that I appreciate us as investors in real assets, right, is number one, it's just, and whether we start in real estate or we start in something else that's tangible, it starts to open up our mind to a different way of thinking, right? I remember when I was just doing stocks, I just thought about stocks, but then when I started investing in real estate, it was like real estate. Oh my gosh, this is simple. This makes sense, and okay, and yeah, and then it opened my mind to other things, and so I was then open to doing other things, and it's very similar, right? If I think about now what I'm understanding about energy, like energy has always been super important, right? If you think about it at a very high level, every single output that we have, it has two components. The first component is labor and the other is energy. And I thought, wow, okay, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And as I start realizing that, and then I started saying, because of some of the incentives that are related to energy and energy production specifically, it made it a place that I really wanted to learn more about, right? And I've now started learning about a lot of different types of energy. But to your point, because energy is everything and everything is energy, regardless of what's happening at your house down the street or even across the world, there's always something that is going to impact energy and the need for more energy. And so it's very similar to what I started thinking about from a basic needs perspective. When you need a place to live, or you need or want a place to live, the proof of concept already exists. And so being able to explain the need for energy, to your point, I don't really need to explain it. It's just a matter of how is the energy being produced. That's where more of the explanations come. And because of that, because it's something that most of us understand or understand the need for, that part has made it relatively easy to have conversations about. Of course, there's always very specific conversations. If I'm speaking to somebody who's in, for instance, the energy or oil and gas space, and they may be an expert, I always learn stuff as well. So just recognizing all the different things that have happened in the energy space, and also having now a real focus on it, it's something that I've seen my business expand exponentially. Like, what do I mean by that? So remember, I was a high paid professional. I was, very visible. And at the same time, I was, syndicating capital, bringing people together around common goals and common dreams. And just to kind of give you an idea, from the first year, more or less, that I was doing this, or about a little bit, year and a bit, while I was still working my corporate role, since I've left my corporate role and have now done focus just specifically on helping accredited investors that are looking for these types of investment opportunities that generate returns and also help with income tax problems, our business has multiplied by 7, right? And so what that means to me is, one, I have more of a focus now. I'm understanding the accredited investor base that we are serving, because also it helps that I am one of those people. I understand what it's like to go every single day, all day, from early morning to late night, and recognize that you're doing 100% of the work, right? I was doing 100% of the work, and many times I would bring home, 50, 55% of the reward. At a certain point, I didn't like that, especially because I was open to learning about new investment opportunities, because the real estate that helped open my mind is now continued to keep my mind wide open. And so now being able to look at new opportunities, evaluate those new opportunities, understanding the teams behind those opportunities, it's one of the things that's now an extension of where my business is and how we're serving those accredited investors, and why. And the energy space is one that's, I think, going to be around for quite a while, kind of like real estate.
That's great, man. I'm curious, Billy, for yourself. I mean, you're clearly a super bright individual. You're very open. You're very curious. For the person that is just getting involved in the investment space or maybe in the real estate space, that's new for them. They're a high paid professional. They don't understand that world. They don't have maybe the same curiosity that you do. I mean, what's the mindset shift around, hey, I know stocks and bonds. This is what I've always done and it's worked for me. Why should I bother with this alternative asset class? This something different.
Yeah, so I'm going to probably cheat a little bit here because we're asking the question and you're asking the question of me, and the person that's listening that had that question, here's the good part. You're already here listening. So you know that something inside of you knows that something's wrong, knows that there's something more that's out there. So what I would suggest is that you've already taken the first step, right? You're already here listening to Michael. You're learning from the guests that are here. So, continue to go down that path. The curiosity is already there because you're already here, right? And the reality is find out, listen, and talked about it before. I mean, you have an opportunity to even leave an honest review. And in your review, say, hey, look, I would really like to have this question answered. Guess what? Somebody's probably going to respond to you. And it's about being able to take the steps that you feel comfortable with as an investor. The curiosity is already there. You're already here. You heard the question asked. So I would say I would give myself the ability to continue down this track. Listen to more of the podcast. Start to read about the things that you believe will help to move you forward, move you closer to whatever your goal is. Because everyone has an investing goal, and allow yourself to get educated, move towards the things that you really want to be able to do. And ultimately that's going to help you. So I only say that because I know that they're listening. If they're here, they're listening to the question that you ask, and they just need to give themselves the ability to keep going down that path.
I love it. I'm curious, Billy, for most of the clients that you work with, the accredited investors you work with, are you having to sell them on this idea of your business model and what it is that you're doing? Or are they already here coming to you saying, hey, I've already done the research. I know who you are. I know what the asset is. Like, let me give you money and are throwing money at you. What does that look like?
Well, so I'm pretty particular, right? Like I don't, if our relationship started that way, it wouldn't be a relationship that would last very long.
Say more.
And what I mean by that is if someone just wants to throw money at you, I don't want a transactional relationship, right? I want to build a long-lasting relationship. That may be the person's intention. Hey, look, I eventually want to invest with you, but the type of business culture that we're building is we're building an investor family base. And so in the same way that we want to get to know one another, I'm very intentional. Hey, let's invest 20 minutes in getting to know one another, at least have a 20-minute conversation, 30-minute conversation, understand a bit more about your goals, your dreams, priorities, and also understand about me and my business. What are our business goals and priorities? Because if there's an alignment, then it makes it really easy for us to take the next step and say, okay, well, listen, I know you have an investment opportunity. You've probably seen something about me somewhere online, or you've listened to this wonderful podcast and you're thinking, okay, well, listen, I think we sound pretty similarly aligned. So what's the harm in investing 30 minutes to get to know one another, right? I'm doing that multiple times a day. And so from there, that's the first part, is to be able to start the relationship on the right foot, getting to know one another, getting to like one another. You know one another, you like one another, eventually you trust one another. But also, like, one of the things, and this is probably comes from, the 26 years of working in, really a relationship-based type of roles, and the last 21 years in, high value type of selling and relationship building. It's really about, like, I want to always help, and I want our company to always help those accredited investors that we're serving to make an informed decision. Because what we do, like the solution that we offer, it's the solution. Like, it does what it does. So you have to be comfortable. You have to be informed. You have to ask all of the questions that you feel uncomfortable asking. And my team and I have to be able to give you the information or the data in the way that makes the most sense to you, so that you ultimately can make an informed decision. Because the worst thing that can happen is you look at something, you're like, wow, this looks absolutely awesome. The numbers are fantastic. You don't spend time getting to know the person or the company that you are going to invest with. You don't know if you're aligned, and you're making a decision just based on some numbers that you saw. And as soon as things don't go according to plan and you haven't done the prep work on the front end, that's when things get really, really wild and out of control. Like, at least that's what I've seen, at least in the last 21 years of my experience. And so I do have a lot of focus on, being aligned up front, being able to get to know one another, and then also being able to help someone make an informed decision. And then after that, if their informed decision, things go awry, then, hey, listen, at least they were informed, they knew about the risks. And, we also want to protect on the downside and talk about risks, because that's something that's also very, very important to helping someone make an informed decision. So I don't know if that's a little bit long-winded, but hopefully that answers the question.
No, it's great, man. I mean, as you were saying that, I had this question. You were saying, we're not transactional. We want to develop this relationship. And in my head, I'm thinking, why, right? Because from a growth standpoint, from a revenue standpoint,
Yeah.
I mean, people could look at you and say, well, Billy, you're doing it wrong. You're taking too much time with this person. You're spending too much time there. But I think you've explained the why so eloquently. And it is because you're protecting the downside. When something goes sideways.
When something happens.
You've got that foundational relationship to look back on and say, hey, this, we trust each other. There's not a finger pointing game going on, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. And then also too, I guess this goes back to the company is that I've been fortunate enough to work for. A lot of this is about business models. It's like I was talking about earlier. Well, let me put it this way, maybe. So I like food. My kids like food. And there are things that, like my son, when he's given the opportunity to go somewhere, well, he chooses to go to McDonald's, right? And so that's where he likes to go, and he likes to eat McDonald's. I don't so much, but sometimes I used to a lot when I was younger. And then there's other places
Dude, the
that
McFlurries are out of control.
Right. All right, I'll go agnostic. Some people like fast food. I probably should have done it that way. Some people like fast food, right? And there was a point in my life where I liked fast food as well. I'll change it up a little bit. There's also another point in my life where I like to be able to sit down, and I wanted to have more of a, you want to sit in the booth and you want to talk, and you just want to spend a little bit more time. And then there's also a point in my life where I like to take my wife to very nice, sometimes 1, 2, or 3 Michelin star restaurants, right? The thing is, each one of those business models work. They can all be profitable. But the thing is, the business models are very, very different. Do you like fast food? Do you like slow dining? Or do you like Michelin restaurants? All of them are profitable. And it comes back to the question,
man. That's such a good
but it's coming back to the question that you asked, right? Our business is not a high volume business, right? I would rather invest the time to build a deep, valuable relationship, right? And that also means that the investor base that my company is serving is the investor base that we've decided to do is an accredited investor, is typically a busy, high-paid professional that wants to have more control over their time. And I recognize that for some people, that's going to be a challenge. But it's also for the person that's willing to invest the time. I know that person has a much higher probability of getting to the goals that they're really wanting, because they're going to invest that time outside of the stuff that's keeping them busy. And they're going to be investing the time on the things that's going to get them closer to their life priorities. That's our business model. There are other models that will prefer to go to a high number of people, right? But there's no wrong business model. That's just the one that I think works the best for me, because I'm kind of that person today. That's the person that I understand the most.
Yeah. Man, I love that. I love that so much. And your analogy, the restaurant, different service types, just was like, loved it. Billy, this has been
use it whenever you want.
Yes. I'm going to, TM Billy Keels. This has been so much fun, as always. For everyone who's stuck with us this far, and there's on the edge of their seats, what is the name of your company? If they're like, I have to invest with this guy.
Yeah, it's First Generation Capital Partners. You can find it at firstgencp.com. And actually, for people who are the accredited investor who's having that challenge around being able to find things where you can find investment opportunities that are going to get you closer to your life goals, generate income for you, as well as provide tax benefits on the earned income side of things, we have a guide for you. You can go to firstgencp.com/paylesstax. That's probably the best way to find out exactly, what we're doing. We'll have a nice little white paper there. And if it makes sense for you to continue to move forward, love to be able to get on the phone call and talk, have a conversation with you. Michael, the other thing is, and this is people can find out more about me as well, but they should go check out the Going Long podcast, episode 221, yes, where you absolutely crushed it. So Going Long podcast, episode 221 with your buddy, Michael. And then from there, I think I'm the only Billy Keels in Barcelona, Spain. So if you want to look me up on LinkedIn, you can go there. Like I said, Billy Keels, Barcelona, Spain. Just let me know that you heard Michael and I having a conversation here, and it's going to help us to keep our conversation going. So with that, man, I love being able to be back here. I feel very, very thankful, grateful for the ability to be back here and share a little bit more of my story. Michael, team, really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, the pleasure is ours, Billy. Thank you. And we will definitely be in touch, man. I'm looking forward to doing this again soon.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, everyone. That was our episode. A big thank you to Billy for coming on again, opening his vest a little bit, showing his cards, being a little bit vulnerable, and sharing some of his mindset and what was going on in his life when he made some of those massive transitions. As always, if you enjoyed the episode, we'd love to hear from you with a rating or a review wherever it is you get your podcasts. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Happy investing.